till I drive. Oh, well, I don't want to better illustrate the point that I'm trying to make as it relates to mirror neurons and how a child actually learns. See, there everyone thinks that a child just will automatically walk upright, will automatically um, assume all the behaviors of a human. However, that's not true. A child is born with a blank slate. And I heard a lecture was given by another psychologist who tried to discredit this. And after the lecture, I actually got into a one-on-one with the psychologist, and I asked him one question, and during the discourse of our conversation, he had to yield his point and assured me he would never speak of this again because he had never taken into consideration feral children. So he tried to posit that a child is not born with a blank slate because he's more of a uh, he believes more on the nature uh, of the nature side of nurture of the nature nurture debate. I'm balanced on that. I understand that there are precursor genes and there are biological contributing factors to behavior. However, for the most part, those behaviors which a behavior that you can see and measure, aside from those that are automatic, such as suckling and placing your hand to your mouth for eating, these are involuntary behaviors. However, voluntary behaviors, you must lean toward the side of nurture, meaning that they are learned. Okay. So if you, something, a child does not know how to walk unless it sees you walk and it gains the confidence to mirror that behavior. Now, the next video that we're about to watch, you're going to see a child that was not afforded that opportunity. You're going to see a child that was raised by dogs. This is not a gimmick. This is not, feral children exist in the world. So watch this video, and this should bring the point full circle as to why you should not allow drag queens inside anyone's school, because you are essentially robbing children, because these are very small children and they are over, aside from the fact that they're over sexualized, children should not be witnessing men dressed like women and confusing their development and allowing them to be attracted to that behavior, because it's not society, regardless of what you, if you're a left-wing woke person, regardless of what you may believe, society does not, has not, will not ever accept the behavior. If you don't believe me, ask Target and ask Bud Light. That's called the response of the silent majority. But let's get into the video.
It's an extraordinary story. A little girl, neglected, rejected, abandoned by her parents. For comfort, she snuggles up in the farmyard kennels with the dogs. That becomes her home. They become her family for the next 6 years. They protect her, feed her, maybe even love her, and in return she begins to act like them. It's a remarkable case, one that startled the world of science, especially when the doctors tried to teach her to be a normal child. In fact, the film you're about to see reignites the whole nature versus nurture debate, and it could make you think twice about the way we bring up our kids. At first, this looks like some kind of strange hoax. Ukrainian girl, Oksana Malaya, running, jumping, eating and barking, just like a dog. But this is no fraud. Oksana's behaviour is the result of the most cruel childhood neglect. Neglect that began when she was 3.
Mum had too many kids. We didn't have enough beds, so I crawled to the dog.
So one thing I want to point out is that for feral children, if the feral children are discovered before the age of 12, then language can be introduced to the child and they can learn to speak. However, if it goes beyond um, if it goes beyond the age of 12, they will never ever be able to learn a human spoken language, such as the case with the wolf boy. Wolf boy never spoke, never, and he never um, attained human attributes. He was it was fixed in his as if he was actually born a wolf. He just would not ever um, conform to human traits and characteristics.
And started living with her.
Her parents were alcoholics, and one night, too drunk to care, they left their infant daughter outside in the cold. Looking for warmth, Oksana crawled into the farm kennel. Curling up with the mongrel dogs probably saved her life.
I would talk to them, they would bark, and I would repeat it. That was our way of communication.
For the next 6 years, from the age of 3 to 8, the kennel was Oksana's home and the dogs her family. She had very little human contact, and when finally discovered, it was obvious there'd been catastrophic consequences for Oksana's development.
She was more like a little dog than a human child. She used to show her tongue when she saw Walter, and she used to eat with her tongue and not her hand.
You can see in this video that all of her behavior is mimicking behavior. She has mimicked the behavior of the dog. Her body, she's internalized that. Now you got to understand. Let's go back to what we learned about the social learning theory. There was a stimulus, the dogs. The child internalized it. Then she repeated the behavior, and the only mother that she had was the matriarch of the pack of dogs that reinforced that, because dogs show you love. So it was being reinforced, letting her know that that was good. And if you heard in the video, they were she would eat like them. And even if it meant raw food, I mean, no one is cooking for this child, okay? And this is a toddler. She started off as a toddler, 2 or 3 years old, much like the ages in the earlier part of the video that you saw being read to by drag queens.
Oksana is now 22 and lives in a special care home. Remarkably, she is able to speak, able to communicate some feelings, and that's some progress.
Well, I remember her when she was initially brought here. She wasn't like a human being. She was like a small animal. About half a year later, she had completely changed.
But certain situations still trigger deeply ingrained responses.
When I feel lonely, I find myself doing anything. I crawl on all fours. This is how lonely I am. Because I have nobody. I spend my time with dogs. I go for walks and do anything I want to. Nobody notices that I crawl on all fours.
When we're talking about how does a child learn to live with dogs, there's obviously no deal as.
Now watch, I'm gonna show you something. Watch her hands in this, okay? This is allowing, so this is a female human, and the neural processors from left to right in females, okay? However, watch how she is fixated on the dogs, and look at her hands. This is a nervous response because her brain is incongruent with where she is. She's standing up, but she wants to go and join those dogs. Watch her hands. Just pay attention to nothing but her hands.
Such, but there's give and take. So the dogs are giving their love, their attention, their acceptance in a sense.
Did you see what I was talking about? Her hands, grasping her hands and clenching her hands and fixated, eyes fixated on the dogs. She is having a response to that because she's been trained over the years. You have to understand, she's been in physical therapy and therapy with a child psychologist who specializes in developmental, child developmental psychiatrist, excuse me, not a psychologist. And that she's in years, but that does not, and she even said in the video that she still likes to hang around dogs all the time. She does not want to socialize with other people. She does not want to, um, I mean, she's lonely, but she finds comfort and solace with dogs. Because at the end of the day, humans are social, but dogs are also social. That's why they run in packs. And she would much rather spend, she has developed a pack mentality, but it's with dogs, not with people.
And what the child must give is that they've got to learn to adapt to the dog situation. And if that means eating raw meat and scavenging a rubbish tip, that's what they're going to have to learn to do, because otherwise they're not going to survive.
And the last thing I want to point out for anyone who is skeptic, that first of all, this is on 60 Minutes, and this girl is actually in the Ukraine. Like you can, uh, everyone is aware, that this happened. But I want you to crawl around on your knees outside on the ground with shorts on, and I want to know how long you think you can do this. That is adamant. That is incontestable proof that this is not something that someone did to gain the attention of 60 Minutes. Her knees and it has been conditioned over time to withstand that. Crawling around on the ground, she's not crawling. She's actually galloping, and she trots just like a dog would. And she's pushing off the pads of her toes. She's not on, her feet are not flat to the ground where the top of the arches are. It is her toes. So they've curled. She's manipulated them into that position. And then she was licking her leg earlier in the video. No, this is deeply internalized in her. And you wonder why a lot of members in the woke community become so distressed when you challenge their ideals because of the cognitive dissonance. That's why. Because you're disagreeing with what they have internalized. This is, don't speak to me about, well, this genetic. No, it's not. It is a learned behavior. It's nothing to do with genetics. It is a learned behavior. You've learned that this is acceptable in this group. Why are you not agreeing with me? And that's why they become so irate and they become so belligerent and they need validation. Why? Because their reinforcement has been socially reinforced. And the senators, the legislators, you're not doing anyone any favors by not holding the clinical psychologists accountable that are diagnosing children who really don't have gender dysphoria for a potential meal ticket, because each child who says that they have gender dysphoria and wants to go through the surgery, that's a $5 million child. And all the actors in part that play a part in this get paid. And it's unethical. It goes against our code to do no harm. It is completely wrong.
I'd like you to ask Oksana if this house is a particular place she knows.
Using drawings, child psychologist Lynn Fry tries to determine what damage the years spent with dogs have done to Oksana's intellectual and social development.
A drawing of a person has always been taken as quite a good judge of basic ability, if you like. And her drawing was very similar to you would expect from a 6-year-old.
Cognitive tests also show this 22-year-old has the mental age of a 5 or 6-year-old. And because Oksana missed out on so much human contact during her early years, she also missed out on the chance to learn basic human skills. Psychologists believe she'll never be able to catch up.
So when the psychologist gave her a cognitive exam to assess her mental capacity, it was determined that this 22-year-old girl is, well, 22-year-old woman is has the same mental capacity as about 5 or 6-year-old.